think about which cultures probably help you do what, like Avinash was talking about, and which cultures you think that's not really something we can get the same consequences that he got. Yeah.
Okay. So good evening. My name is Kushru Mistry. I am the Chief Technology Officer of a company called GM Modular, which makes switches and LEDs. I've had a very long career in information technology. It's my 35th year now. Most of the career was probably outside the country, okay, where most of the lessons were learned about how to build the cat. And I worked with, I think at last count, I worked in 53 countries. Okay. Because of the organization, I used to work for a company called HSBC, right? So I worked with them for a very long time, including things like, and I can give you, I worked with companies like McDonnell Douglas, of course in Hong Kong, in Asia Pacific region, British Telecom, and then HSBC. And I think I can give you one or two instances where when we say build the cat, when you're young and stupid, okay, I would suggest build the cat at that time, and that makes your career grow. Okay, that's what I would recommend to all the students, because I do remember being in British Telecom at that time. It was not even called BT, it was called British Telecom. And the internet was just getting birthed, so you can well imagine how old I am now. I'm talking about 91, 92. And in South Korea, I was working with a company called, we were seconded to a company called International Korean Authority, okay? And they were the ones who actually did the international portion of it for just birthing the internet at that time. That means just bringing internet into the country. I had no clue about Korean language. I had no clue about the culture. I was just a young guy who was sent out there because I had the technical knowledge of setting it up for the country, because I'd already done this in China and Taiwan at that time. The first thing I noticed out there was that the culture of the people in Korea is very, I would say, more male-oriented than female-oriented, because of the various, everybody has to go to the army when they're at a certain age. All right. The first instance this is in Hyundai. Okay, they were the main people who were sponsoring with or collaborating with British Telecom. And the first thing they do is they make you sit down at lunch and they provide something in front of you which is called the bowl-fish. Okay, and bowl-fish is a very dangerous, okay, and there were some special cleavers who so when they poke the bowl-fish, it bloats up. And then they kill it and they cleave the inside of the mouth, okay, which is considered the best meat. But if the cleaver touches the bone, it poisons it, and you are dead within minutes. Wow. And you got to eat that. So your host will eat it first, and then you have to eat it. Why is this done? Because only then they will say you are man enough to do business with us.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right?
It's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough thing. Okay. Again, when you're young and stupid, you don't realize it. It's only I heard about this later on. I thought, oh, this is great, fish. I'm okay. I can eat anything. But it was only later on, the person who actually, and please understand, this is the general manager of Hyundai, okay? He's like God out there, right? And he said, no, I will do business with you because you sat down and had this. And from that time onwards, it was easy rollout. But initially to get into the Korean market was very, very difficult. So this is one of the instances. What I'm saying is the culture, and belling the cat, that means you've got to take that initiative and go for it. If you don't, okay, and I think, in my opinion, if the younger generation takes that into account, that they don't have to think about what they're going to do. They're just got to go and get it done. I think they will be successful in life.
Yeah, so my name is Rajesh. I've been in DBS for the last 13 years. In terms of my career, I've spent 35 plus years, and all these 35 years have been spent in bank. So while I'm from BFSI sector, most of my time is actually in B and not in other segments. So to specifically talk about belling the cat, I remember one instance where we were talking about where we were concluding one transaction, and we were basically looking at how this should be pitched externally. And we had our group CEO on the other side, group CFO on the other side, and various seniors from Singapore, because our office is headquartered in Singapore. And they were talking about how it needs to be pitched, etc. And they were finalizing the pitch book, etc. Which was getting finalized, and the whole approach was something which was not I felt that their approach was not correct. So while I heard them specifically, at the end I said, I have a divergent view. Can I express? And the group CEO on the other side said, yes, why not? And then I made a point saying that we are talking about this particular transaction and how beneficial it is for DBS Bank, but we need to also look at the transaction from the other side, where you have the other buyer, and say how is this going to approach on the other side, and what will be the impact on DBS because of that, because you had regulators, we had various parties. And he actually took it very, very sportingly, and he said that yes, we need to change this thing, because we can't go with the current pitch book which we have already finalized. And I'm glad that this point was made. So to specifically talk about the culture which is there, we have while every organization talks about psychological safety, there are two other points which also is very, very important. One is equity of voice, in terms of the various members who are there, irrespective of the grade, you need to ensure that they are given this thing. And the second part which is there is divergence of view. So when you have these type of forums where you are deliberating on something, how amenable are you, or how receptive are you to take a divergent view before you take a considerate call? Because as a CEO, he can always take a call and say that this is my decision and move forward. But to take an all-round decision, it's also important to hear other people and then go with what the right decision need to be taken after taking into account all the data points. That in my mind is also very, very important. So there was one one thing which I had read many years back when I was when I used to read a lot. Most of the ideas are actually killed in a water cooler discussion than at the boardroom. And this is exactly the case, because if you go with a with a feeling that ye chalega nahi, you will never be able to approach. But if you have that, if you have a divergent view and you are able to express it in a way which the other person doesn't think is in a confrontation, it's not done in a confrontational mode, the people on the other side, if they are senior enough and they are matured enough, they will take it in a proper spirit. So that's what my take.
Saptarshi is on the right, on the other side of from a multinational financial services to a Indian homegrown financial. So is that culture changing, giving a different flavor, or is it?
It's a very interesting culture. So quick introduction, I'm Saptarshi Bhattacharya. I have about 20 years of HR experience. I work in Motilal Oswal Private Equity, and so my role is very unique. I actually, so we are investors in 4 sectors as a private equity player. We are invested in BFSI, in pharma, in FMCG and consumer, and in what we like to call as niche industrial, certain areas in the industrial space. And my role is to work with the promoters and founders of these companies on their HR practices. So I'm literally trying to bell the cat every single day, because what is interesting about this is that you're actually dealing, today we invest in 32 organizations. And you're talking of 32 organizations with 32 different cultures. And you have to appreciate that by the time we're investing in these companies, they're not startups. They've already done 500,000, 2,000 crores of revenue, operating at very healthy EBITDA margins. So you can't just walk into that company and advise the promoter saying, this is what needs to be done. So it's a very, I think tricky is too negative a term, but it's a very interesting phase for us to come in, build a rapport with the promoters, build a rapport with many of the founders where there is no professional management under them, and to really say that, we appreciate that you've been able to build an organization with the talent that you have. But, if you want to go from here to a 2x, 3x, 4x revenue, we need to build a professional pipeline. We need to build an organization, so as to speak of. We've had companies where we invested where we have 42 people reporting to the promoter directly, and it's very difficult to have that conversation initially, but it takes time to build that rapport. So, and we have companies, a lot of them in tier 2 and 3 towns. These discussions can't happen over a Zoom call, so you end up spending that much time in a Morbi in Gujarat or a Mysore in Karnataka and a Ludhiana in Punjab, and getting FaceTime with those promoters. It's a great learning as well, because you're learning so many different businesses. And I think the success stories follow. If you're able to place a good CEO or a CFO in company A that has worked well, that success story can be replicated in the company, but not necessarily. And I think that's where where the culture of Motilal Oswal comes in is that at times it doesn't work. At times you may end up getting a wrong talent, a great talent, but just not the right talent for that company. And I think it's not just about recruitment, it's also about bringing in processes, cultures, and culture is such a wide term. Something as simple as having a proper performance management framework in a company like that. As we exit closer to IPO, getting the right independent directors, getting a good ESOP process in place. Each one of these is a hurdle in its own way, and it's okay to fail. I think that's how we look at it, that it's impossible to run, and we don't want to run these companies. We appreciate that they can run it. How do we assist in making their lives easier? But yeah, I can go on and on about how many failures we've had and learn from them and try not to replicate it, because one size does not fit all. I think that's the one learning. We have 4 different sectors. Within that, every promoter has a different way of running their company. But yeah, it's a phenomenal experience to appreciate and understand not just cultures of companies. I think it's even the diversity of the country. We are completely a domestic private equity fund. We invest only in domestic players, and it's amazing to see how different promoter A is from promoter B. And yeah, so it's tricky, but it's fun.